Welcome, folks, to another episode of Mike's House of Movies. Starting the review sessions off on YouTube is none other than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Out of the Shadows. Now, for whatever reason why they named it after the worst Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle video game is beyond known to me, is pretty much says of what they expect out of this film. It's directed by David Green, whose only other movie really to his name as a feature film is Earth to Echo. That didn't do well at the box office. That was kind of almost like a ripoff of Super 8, a really watered down Super 8. But it had a little bit of heart, and I guess they thought he could bring something new to the Turtles franchise. We have the returning characters of April O'Neil, Vernon Fenwick. Casey Jones is new, but Michelangelo, of course, Donatello, Leonardo, Raphael are all back. Megan Fox returns as April O'Neil. Will Arnett is Vernon Fenwick. Laura Linney is now in the Turtles movie as Chief Vincent of the Police Department of New York City. Stephen Amell is Casey Jones. Noel Fisher, of course, is Michelangelo. Jimmy Howard's Donatello. Pete Plozak as Leonardo. He also does the voice now and not Johnny Knoxville. And as Raphael is Alan Rich, and Tyler Perry's here is Baxter Stockman, and Brian T. as Shredder. Of course, we've got Stephen Farrelly, who is Sheamus from WWE, as Rocksteady, and Gary Anthony Williams as Bebop. Tony Shalhoub comes back as the voice of Splinter, and we're ready to roll. I had high hopes for this film. I was probably one of the few that kind of enjoyed the first film. I took it for what it was, and I liked the tone they were going for with the first film. I liked the interaction between the Turtles. They felt like the Turtles from the cartoons, and they felt like they belonged in this film. And for the most part, the first film for me worked. I was entertained. It wasn't too lighthearted. It wasn't too dark. It was just fun. And I know it did decently enough at the box office for money wise to warrant a bigger budget sequel. But a lot of people did not like the first movie at all. Now, on to the second one. When I started seeing trailers for the second one, I was even more interested. I know there was Dimension X, Krang's in it. Bebop and Rocksteady is like, wow, they really must have listened to the fans and really went back to the cartoon roots and such. And wow, was I further from the truth once this film finished. It was a chore to get through. I believe it or not, it's a new director, but written by the same people who did the first one, and they weren't all that great as writers for the first one. It was passable, but this one was even worse. It was all over the place. None of the jokes I felt worked. There was a couple here and there. Most of the ones that worked you've already seen in the trailer. So if you've pretty much seen the trailers, so seen pretty much every trailer that's out there, you've pretty much seen the best parts of the film. And there really isn't anything new. I'm not going to go into certain spoilers, but I mean, you've got Shredder. He really didn't do much. You got his. He really didn't do much. What he really didn't. Really anything spectacular in the film. It's just nothing was coherent. It was the movie was so all over the place. It was just the pacing was all over the place. The editing was terrible. The directing was terrible. The writing was worse than the first one. That's really hard to say, but this time they really did focus on the Turtles. The Turtles are almost in every scene in this film, and I felt throughout the film that they were almost cycling through their heads. What from the cartoon haven't we shown you yet? Oh, it's yes, we haven't shown you this. Throw it in. Oh, we haven't shown you this. Chuck it in there as well. There's a time near the end where Rocksteady and Bebop are chasing Casey Jones through a parking garage, and out of nowhere they appear on their motorcycles they had from the cartoon. It's like, where do they get these motorcycles from? They were running around chasing Casey Jones on foot through this parking garage, and then out of nowhere, oh look, we haven't shown their motorcycles yet. Throw them in, and that's what I felt like. And everything boiled down to the big battle in New York with Krang. His whole goal was to get these three pieces of this trans-dimensional portal to align and have Baxter Stockman pieced them together so they can open a portal to Dimension X and bring over the Terradrome so they can take over the world. Now, when you think bringing over the Terradrome, you think he would have been, hey, it's the Terradrome coming through the portal. It's going to wreak havoc in New York. No, it's the Terradrome piece by piece. His whole plan was to bring it through the portal, one brick at a time, so to speak. And it was absolutely ridiculous. It was. And to top it all off, ILM did the special effects. I didn't realize ILM was involved in this, and they did the special effects. They must have did the bargain basement version of Industrial Light and Magic, because I thought a lot of the CG was really, really poorly done, and it's just looked. I don't know if it was because it was the 3D version that the CG really stood out, but it was a lot of hokey looking CG, and yeah, it was just a bad movie all around. Now, one of the saving graces for me, though, was Krang. I really did like the design of Krang. I like what they did with Krang. It was weird hearing Brad Garrett do the voice of Krang, because Krang is usually like a whiny, kind of higher pitched voice, where Brad Garrett's a more deeper, more sullen tone. He kind of hit some of the notes that Krang usually hits, but overall, he didn't do a bad job, and that was probably one of the saving graces for me. The pull of any enjoyment out of this film was, in fact, Krang. And I love the look of him. They did a good job on that character design for Krang. But overall, it just felt so sloppy. I mean, I like Stephen Amell as Arrow. I felt that he wasn't quite there for Casey Jones. It was a different style for Casey Jones, because he doesn't have his greasy, long, stringy black hair, doesn't have his gruff voice. And the one thing that bothered me with his performance, that he always seemed like he was smiling through everything that he said, no matter what the situation. He always had this grin on his face saying these lines, and I was on my head. I was saying, Stephen Amell, man, stop smiling when you're talking. Just deliver the lines and do your thing. He felt it was his version of Casey Jones. He was a kind of a wuss in a way. I mean, he seemed tough, but he was very intimidated by the Turtles. And from the original, if you watch the original 1990 movie, you can tell like Casey Jones was not intimidated by them at all. But then again, by that time, he was already deep into his vigilante style of the character. Maybe it's because he's still coming off as being a cop and not a vigilante yet. Maybe that's why he wasn't in full vigilante mode. He felt intimidated, but it was kind of easy also to pull the wool over his eyes. The Turtles get some stuff over on him. It was just like, are you serious, man? Like, really, Casey Jones? He just wasn't there. He just didn't do it. Megan Fox, of course, was pretty much only there to be the sex symbol for the young teen people who are going to go see this film. I did like what they were doing with April O'Neil. She was out in the field more relaying information back to the Turtles, which was kind of cool, she did that a lot in the cartoons as well. And same with Vernon Fenwick, or whatever his last name is. He's now he got the keys to New York City. He is this big hero because there's a pact between the Turtles and Vern that said that he was the one that saved the day from the last one, because the Turtles want to remain in the shadows, of course. So right off the beginning, he takes this persona of the Falcon, as so they call him, and it's just ridiculous. It's just so bad. And like I said, there's times though when characters come and then they go and you forget about them and then they show up and like Baxter's talking, there's times where you forget about that he's in the movie, even though you've already seen him. He's there, but later on when he pops back, I was like, oh yeah, he had a story. And Tyler Perry, I like Tyler Perry as an actor as well as a director, but I felt they made him such a caricature of a nerdy scientist. It was so ridiculous, like so over the top. Even the glasses he was wearing, it just felt so fake. It's again, like you had that feeling of bad cosplay. And then they take him off by the end of the movie. Schritter's done with him, and he's like, "We're taking you to Tokyo. You're our prisoner." And I was expecting at the end of the movie, at the end of the credits, you'd have a follow-up scene. I was hoping that would show Baxter Stockman turning into a fly. I don't want to spoil the thing here, but don't bother staying until at the end of the credits. There's no after credit scene like there was in the last one. But during the credit sequence, they do have a cover of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon song, and it was horrible. I was just like, why would they include this? Why? It's just as bad as in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man when they had the violinist lady singing the Spider-Man song in the subways. It was very, very cringeworthy. The action sequences weren't too bad, but nothing seemed to add up. There was a couple sequences in the beginning, like the chase down the highway with the turtle van. I felt that went on way too long. I was just like, wow, and it was like one of those chases that was going along, but it didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And it was just so loud and obnoxious in a way, and things felt like they were so overloaded every scene that it was just, everything just felt chaotic, and you really just didn't have time to focus on things. Nothing really slowed down enough to process or develop any type of character in any given situation. They do kind of go into the motives of the turtles more, of how they interact with each other and the things that they're dealing with as a team, which was good. It was good to see, the problems Leonardo was having being a leader and thinking that, his way is the highway, that everybody in the team needs to be thinking as one. They need to be thinking the same thing in order to be a cohesive team. While Splinter says, no, you can't change them. Each have their own individual identity and their own individual thoughts, and together bringing those thoughts into one is what makes. I thought that was a really good message, and that worked well to a point. And then things become chaotic again, and every time things became chaotic, you kind of lost focus of what was happening in the scenes, and then they would just cut to another scene, and it just felt like, where are we going with this? What are we trying to accomplish here? Anyways, I've said enough. I give this a 2 out of 5. I don't think it's a good sequel. It will make money because it's turtles, and the kids love turtles, and the kids will be going to it. I'm sure kids will love it because it's just frantic action. It really felt like they brought the cartoon to the screen for 2 hours. I think what worked well in the cartoon on TV is its 21-minute episodes. So, and in short bursts, those style of episodes work great. They hit all the points of it. Nothing gelled enough together that really, by the time you got to the final battle, that you felt you were invested in these characters enough to care what exactly happened, and you knew by the end of it they were going to save the day anyways, right? I mean, it's the turtles. They always save the day, and unfortunately they couldn't save this movie. So, like us subscribe to us if you want to on YouTube now. We're on YouTube, so we'll be able to get us on YouTube. SoundCloud still, you'll get the audio portion of this on SoundCloud. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and of course the web at www.mikeshouseofmovies.com. I hope you enjoyed this format here. It's a little different, trying new things. Trying to get the studio ready to get it to where I can film again, because I would like to do on-air video reviews with me actually in front of the camera again. That will be happening sometime down the road. I don't know when, but stay tuned for more reviews. Hopefully within a few days I will have a review for Warcraft. Very excited to see this film. From what I've seen of it so far, it is absolutely phenomenal, and I think fans will be very pleased. Don't listen to what the critics are saying. The critics have no clue what to talk. I'm reviewing a movie telling you, don't listen to the critics. They have no idea what they're talking about. But yet you're listening to me review a movie telling you, don't go see this film. It's no good. Anyways, I'm Mike from Mike's House of Movies. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day, everyone.